Welcome to a brand new week. It's back to work Monday, long weekend edition. Welcome to the Fête Saint-Jean here in La Belle Province. And so much so, my man joins us from the nation's capital on this back to work Monday. Marco D'Amico from RG Media. And of course, the co-host right here. Marco, good morning and welcome to a brand new week. What's good, brother?
It's the most exciting week in hockey.
It is. We got the NHL Draft to wrap up the month of June. The Stanley Cup has been awarded. A quick reaction to the Florida Panthers running it back. Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row, and obviously winners 2 years in a row. So let me start here before we get into our roundup. Your reaction to Florida, modern day dynasty, and Connor McDavid's postmortem comments about his future at Edmonton. So kick me off with your reaction to Florida running it back.
Yeah, I mean, Florida is basically set up to be a dynasty just because their core is locked up long term. They just got to figure out what's going to happen with Sam Bennett. But for all intents and purposes, Sam Bennett's probably not going to make it to July 1st either. So you have the nucleus together. People want to play in Florida. They have the tax advantage to kind of sign middle of the lineup guys to, replacement level salaries. So I think that they could stay very competitive for another 2 to 4 years quite easily. Mm-hmm. And boy, is that trouble for the rest of the NHL and especially the Atlantic Division.
No kidding. And the Connor McDavid, what was your reaction to picking and choosing the words he used to talk about his future when he was asked about his future in Edmonton? And what did he say? The core has been together forever. We keep trying the same thing over and over again. Some people chose to read between the lines and try to put 2 and 2 together. What did you read and take away from McDavid's postmortem comments?
That is the best player in the world telling his, I wouldn't say incompetent because that's mean, but their underperforming management team, be it Kenny Holland's version of the Oilers or Chiarelli's current version or Bowman's current version of the Oilers, unfortunately just not enough. And just adding Trent Frederick and Jake Wallman while Florida adds Seth Jones and Brad Marchand, like if I'm Connor McDavid, I'm like, well, why the hell didn't you do that?
Right.
Why am I having to put this team on my back when Florida had 6 players around the point per game range and no superstar performance? It was just elite level depth. Where is that elite level depth in Edmonton? And the reality is it doesn't exist because Edmonton's just banking on Draisaitl and McDavid winning them championships.
Are you good calling or referring to the Florida Panthers as a salary cap dynasty, or do they need to win one more title?
No, I think they're there, in my opinion. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, nah, you can't call them a listen, in a flat cap era, there's certainly an advantage to no tax states in that regard, but you got to find a winning formula. And then when you can keep that winning formula together, Lord have mercy on the rest of the NHL. And the thing is, Florida, everyone's bought into that culture. And it really brings to the importance of culture in this regard. Like, yes, there's the no tax element, but there is an element of built-in culture. You can't have a guy like Brad Marchand come in now, even with a no tax element, and want to take less to stay in Florida, which is what we're hearing right now.
It's Marco D'Amico with RG Media. Let's move around the National Hockey League rumor mill for a second, where there's been lots being said. We'll get into Bowen Byram and what we think is going to happen there. Chris Johnson and Edmonton reporting on Evan Bouchard looking at a 1-year deal. And there's also the Jason Robertson kind of dossier, what's going on with the Dallas Stars' vaunted forward, a.k.a. they're kind of air quotes slow playing this. So before we get into some more detailed rumors around the NHL offseason and getting ready for free agency and everything else, are you kind of surprised the Montreal Canadiens organization brand? I don't see them really in the mix in any of these kind of rumors for any of these players so far. Feel free. If you see something else, point me in the direction, but I don't see. The only thing I've seen so far is Ken Hughes wants to play. Ken Hughes wants to get busy. He's open for business. Well, the sky is blue, water is wet. We get it. But other than that, I haven't seen anything specific. What's your takeaway from that?
2 things. One, Ken Hughes doesn't tell anybody what he's doing around the draft. Anybody who claims to have inside information on this is just shooting hot air. Right. They are ironclad and sending smoke screens just absolutely everywhere. Like, you're not gonna get a straight answer, right? Whereas right now, what's going on with these other players is GMs are either leaking the information out because they want to drum up a market, or agents aren't happy with how quick how these negotiations are going, and they want to put pressure on the GM to move them. And there's various situations, like we can see right now in Noah Dobson, right? The information that was released by my colleague Stefan Rossner on Long Island, saying that basically his camp has come out and said, we want this number, which is about 10 million now, or trade us. So like, why would that information come out? Well, it's because it's been discussed by the agent, right? And so like that eventually makes its way to the media, and then it's blasted everywhere. And that sorry for the snap, but that spawns a GM to want to call up, Matthew Darsh and be like, hey, he's on the market. Like, here's a top pair right shot defenseman. What do you want? And so that's how these things start going. So I'm not too worried that you're not hearing anything on Kent Hughes. But on the flip side, do you really want to see Kent Hughes overpay to the point of like looking back on this 2 years from now and being like, well, like, what was he doing? Like, think about it. Are Montreal Canadiens fans, and I'm not saying he's a bad player, and I'm not saying he can't turn it around, but right now, are Montreal Canadiens fans happy that Kent Hughes overpaid in what seems to be an overpay for Alex Newhook, trading a late first and an early second for a player who's not gone over 40 points in the 2 years that he's been with Montreal? No, but it was an overpay, right? You don't want to necessarily overpay for a fit that isn't there. So I can understand why you're not hearing Kent Hughes' name. I think Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are trying very much. The things they want to improve on, everybody wants to improve on, and I think everyone's been pretty straightforward about that. So you're not going to hear the Canadians in on this player or in on that player, because you generally never know. And this is a team that is looking around the desperation of its peers and thinking, we don't really need to do much because the draft will play itself out. And I would be more, I think more and more, I think you may see them want to move up in the draft more than trade away both picks for a number 2 center. That's my take. And that's probably why you're not hearing anything. So, I mean, we'll obviously talk about that later on, but I think when it comes to the Habs, no news means they're busy. If there were news out there, it's because they'd reached a standstill in negotiations for a certain player.
Yeah, smart. I like that. I can get on board with that. And so, like, I led you off with this conversation about the Panthers repeating as champs, Connor McDavid's reaction post-mortem, and then we get the reports over the weekend from TSN's Pierre LeBrun, also with RDS and The Athletic, saying if and when Connor McDavid ever leaves, it's a short list of markets that I believe would be a fit. Who are those teams? LA, New York Rangers, Chicago Blackhawks, the Dallas Stars, Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic. I mean, if you're an organization that was named by Pierre LeBrun, who doesn't just throw things to the wall to see what sticks and then go from there, like if you're any one of those organizations, I mean, is that news to you? And personally, like if I were the GM of any of those organizations, brother, the first thing I'm picking up the phone. I'm like, what's it going to take? I mean, I would be honored to be rumored to be involved if McDavid ever decides to leave. So walk me through that bit of interesting rumor news, short list of markets if McDavid ever leaves. I mean, how would you handle that if you're the general manager of a market that Pierre LeBrun put you in?
I think it's great PR.
Yeah.
I think that if you look at most of Pierre LeBrun's writing, who are the GMs of those teams? Ken Holland, Jim Nill, Kyle Davidson, all guys that have given LeBrun significant intel.
I got you.
Yeah. So he's doing them a favor on that end for one side. And again, I'm not like everybody scratches the backs of the people that give them sources, like even the top dogs, right? So like I'm not too worried about that. What this really is a 5-alarm bell to Stan Bowman saying, and I excuse my language, but you got to pick your shit up.
Yeah.
Because it is a travesty, an absolute travesty that you have 2 top 5 players in this league, one of the top 5 offensive defensemen in this league. I'm not going to say overall, but offensive defensemen in this league. And you can't win the big one against a team like Florida. Like they're stacked. Fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
But they built themselves up accordingly. They weren't throwing random first round picks left and right for rentals all the time. They went and got guys like, for example, they traded 2 first round picks, or the equivalent of, with Spencer Knight and a first round pick in 2026, I believe,
Yeah. Yeah.
for Seth Jones, was traded with retention and has got many years to go. That's the kind of deal that they have to be looking at. They did something close to that when trading with for Jake Wallman, yes, but you need more trades like that. You need more. You need to add elite depth. You need to start securing players, and they have some assets. They still have their first round pick that they used last year. Sam Riley, I believe, or Sam O'Reilly. They still have Matthew Savoy that they can use as trade bait. They still have other assets that they can use as trade bait, but the time should be ticking. And it's not just the fact that Pierre LeBrun talks about, Connor McDavid being able or interested in joining a couple teams. The other interesting piece of information is the fact that he may go short term on his next deal to give himself that option. And I think that star players should start doing that a little bit more. I know fans aren't going to like it, but it's going to keep general managers on their toes and make them a little less complacent, because in my honest opinion, general managers are way too conservative in the NHL compared to their peers in other sports. And they need to take bigger swings like the Florida Panthers have done over the last 5 years. And it's paid off.
No doubt. And you see it in the NBA. And, as we've spoken about for months, salary cap rising, more speculation over the weekend that the salary cap could rise even more aggressively than we originally thought. So to Marco's point, if I were a player agent looking at Mitch Marner, for example, it makes all the sense in the world to look at 2 to 4 year type deals and then renegotiate, sign back up for another short-term deal. As Matthew Tkachuk is fond of saying, he is pro player and he's pro player getting paid. What did he just say after winning the Stanley Cup? He wants the Brinks truck to back up to your house and deposit a ton of cash. Yeah.
That's a load of bull.
That's what he said.
Yeah, it's great. That's what he said. He says a lot of things when you're absolutely smashed. The only thing I would say here is he believes that until it means that Sam Bennett doesn't want to sign in Florida. Right?
Correct.
Like, I'm sorry, you don't win the Conn Smythe. You don't score as much as he scored in the playoffs and sign below $8 million. Right?
Yes. Well, that's why Chris Johnson of TSN and everything else said the Panthers' priorities are Bennett, Ekblad, then Brad Marchand.
Yeah, Ekblad may price himself out. In my honest opinion, he will be, if he reaches the market, the top right shot defenseman available. And boy, are there teams looking at right shot defensemen.
And of course, again, with the Noah Dobson news that the Islanders are quietly exploring the market there, looking at what's the rumored number? $11 million for Noah Dobson?
No. Okay, so let's bring this to T. So this is an initial ask, and in a negotiation, you start high and you work your way down to the number that you're actually comfortable with. So he asked for 11. Now it's 10. Let's see where this goes. Yeah. If the Islanders and the Dobson clan can meet somewhere in the middle in the 9.5 range, I think the deal gets done. But if there's no wiggle room, I think at that point they may look for trades. I would say that the Islanders it's no longer quiet. They're getting calls on the player, and it's convenient that the Calgary Flames, in consequence, have also now released that they're willing to listen on Anderson in their right shot defenseman as well. So now here all of a sudden you couldn't find top pair right shot defensemen, and here they are suddenly becoming available right before the draft.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you look at the Islanders, the only way I would really conceive of them being able to trade Dobson is for them to get an equally valuable piece, be it a future piece or be it a current piece. Yeah. And we know that the New York Islanders are very much looking to get into that 5 to 7 range to pick up a certain homeboy by the name of James Higgins, who's from the island.
Right.
So there's an interest there, but there's also, and this is where this gets fun, the Philadelphia Flyers have also shown interest. They interviewed him last week individually, which usually indicates interest, but at the same time could also be like a wake-up call to the New York Islanders, who they've been discussing with in the past. They have interest in Alexander Romanov. Dobson has come up. So it could be a very interesting negotiation tactic from Danny Briere. But all this to say, the New York Islanders, for all intents and purposes, will probably will likely draft Matthew Schaefer. They really do like him. And drafting a Matthew Schaefer could potentially allow you to move out a guy like Dobson so that you can bring in, that future number 1, number 2 center that could play in your lineup, with Barzal for years to come. So I get what they're trying to do. But yeah, this is a classic case of RFA negotiation leverage leading to trade. This is usually where the Montreal Canadiens are actually quite good at scooping up players. I'm not saying the Canadiens are in on this. They have shown interest before. I don't think that top pair right D is necessarily their priority right now, but they're looking to improve their roster by any means necessary. So I'm not saying that the Canadiens are in on this. All I'm saying is, given their depth at right D, would they consider a move like this depending on the price? Maybe, but I know that the Islanders have their eyes set on trying to draft Higgins, and potentially using a guy like Dobson for that is more like Montreal.
Let's spend a second or two on the Buffalo Sabres, where some rumors around a couple of key players there. Frank Saravelli of the Daily Faceoff speculating that, in his belief, they could potentially see a deal involving JJ Peterka and a trade materializing between now and the end of the month, aka the NHL draft. And then we can talk about what the fourth period reported and speculated on, that the Philadelphia Flyers looked at defenseman Bowen Byram out of Buffalo.
Mhm.
So quickly here, your reaction to those rumors. And my question to you is Buffalo going to be one of the top teams to watch this offseason over the next 3 or 4 weeks?
Absolutely. Keep your eye on Buffalo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now the issue is simply, what are they going to do? Because the thing is, and I think this is where things get tricky, right? A lot of teams are looking to do the same thing, but now you have these players that have asked out, right? You have JJ Peterka, who's asked out. You have Bowen Byram, who wants out. And the Buffalo Sabres don't want to regress next season, but they may be forced to, because the teams that, for example, a guy like JJ Peterka, he gets to July 1st, he's getting offer sheeted.
Yeah.
So you're just going to get picks in return in there anyway. So is it better to get a deal? I'm not saying the same deal, but a deal akin to what the Carolina Hurricanes got with Mikko Rantanen, where you got a key young player that you can insert into your lineup right away that can make a difference, plus a boatload of futures. Well, I think that may be the compromise that the Buffalo Sabres might have to make on a guy like JJ Peterka. When it comes to Bowen Byram, though, he's got interest from much more than just the Philadelphia Flyers. I know the Vancouver Canucks have wanted to bring the Vancouver native back to the West Side, and so this is on one end, kind of like what the Florida Panthers did. On one end, a very attractive piece. On the other end, an insurance policy in case you lose a Quinn Hughes, or in Florida's case, in case you lose an Aaron Ekblad. So very interesting there. And, we know that the Vancouver Canucks are very aggressive and also trying to improve their 2C slot. So the Buffalo Sabres have inquired on Marco Rossi, for example. So the player for player kind of trades are going to be few and far between. You may see more future elevated, produced trades. The only thing is, the Buffalo Sabres cannot and will not allow themselves to go through another rebuild. But you lose Dylan Cousins, right? You bring in Josh Norris, who's often on injured. You're trying to move or buy out Matthias Samuelsson. You have Owen Power, who's disgruntled at this point, and now you have to move out Peterka and Byram. I don't see a world where the Sabres don't regress, and it's unfortunate, but the way that things are shaping up, they may very well be one of the teams going up against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes if things continue the way that we're hearing them.
Wow. Watch out for the Buffalo Sabres. Watch out for my man over there. There's Marco D'Amico. Follow him at MN D'Amico with RG Media. Marco, thanks as always, man. Outstanding work. Have a safe trip to Los Angeles, and we'll see you here live for a very special live Friday show live from the draft. We'll have it for you beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see you live right here on this channel with Marco D'Amico and yours truly. Marco, thanks again.
Always a pleasure, guys. Enjoy the week.